call to order this meeting of the Trinidad Housing Authority of the City of Trinidad. Board of Commissioners meeting. Roll call.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yes.
Commissioner Cremars. Did I get it right?
Yes, you got it
Okay.
right.
Commissioner
Yes.
Lynn.
Here.
Commissioner Crane.
Here.
Okay.
And Commissioner Carr is out yet, so.
Okay. Item 2, public comment, limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Do we have anyone that wants to make public comment?
No public comment. Oh, excuse me. Ray, I didn't put my sheet out. Are you here to make a public comment?
No, I'm
Oh,
just
no.
here to
Spectate?
observe.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Item 3, appointment of Board of Commissioners Vice Chair, Chairman Aragon with vote of board. So per bylaw, I was appointed by our mayor, and so therefore I am putting a nomination forward to ask Ms. Cindy Crane if she would be willing to serve as vice chair for the board. And if anyone has any opposition or would also like to put their name in. Hearing none, then Commissioner Crane, are you willing to serve as vice chair for the board?
I am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I need a motion.
Motion. Thank you. I second the motion.
Okay. First and second. Roll call.
Commissioner Lynn.
Here. Yes.
Commissioner Cremars.
Yes.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yes.
Commissioner Crane.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Item 4 is appointment of Board of Commissioner Treasurer with additional bylaw language, adding treasurer position to existing bylaws. Chairman Aragon with vote of board. Now on this piece, and we do have to put this out to the full authority. So this is just for the board to approve that we are looking to add this language and potentially appoint that position. We'll have to give notice to all tenants, and we'll go with 30-day. And then we'll also open a public comment section at the next board meeting for that. Should we have no opposition, then at that time we'll adopt that bylaw in and appoint the treasurer permanently into that position. And my recommendation for that position appointment is going to be Ms. Cremars, Commissioner Cremars, and primarily because of her financial background and her expertise in accounting and numbers. So,
And you have that language.
yes.
Chairman.
Oh, let me pass this around for everybody.
That's for your record.
So this language was taken directly from a HUD bylaw specifically for housing authority boards. So the language is specific to the housing authority, and it indicates the enumeration of the officers, the multiple offices, and of course the treasurer's position as described below. Are there any questions or comments on that language? And I'll give you guys a few minutes to review that. Hearing no questions or concerns, I'll entertain a motion. And yeah, just for clarification, whoever motions, when you make the motion, if you can read the actual line item out in detail for us.
If I may ask, are we making the motion to go ahead and adopt this for?
The
Or what are we
motion
making
is-
the motion for?
The motion is to move forward with the process of adopting this at the next board meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
So moved.
Okay?
Or I would make a motion that we put out for consideration the amendment of the bylaws to include a treasurer as an officer of this advisory board.
I second.
Roll call?
Commissioner Crane,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Cremars,
Yes.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yes. Okay, item 5, consideration of approval of minute meetings of March 13th, 2025 board meeting. Are there any corrections or changes or questions to the minutes? I do have just one that I caught editorially. In the attendees line item, Director Fields Aguyer's last name is misspelled.
In which item, line item?
The roll
Secretary,
call.
G-E-Y-E-R. You're right.
Who's Cindy?
Oh.
I will
Holy mama.
disclose again, I was an English teacher for a very long time, so sorry guys, I
That's
will
okay.
catch those.
I did not even see that.
With that change, will we approve?
Are there any questions or changes from the commissioners? Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the calling proceedings from the last board meeting, motion at 13/2025.
Okay, motion second.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Kamars?
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes.
Commissioner Crane?
Yes.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yes. Okay, item 6, financial review, this fiscal year and 2025 quarter 4 data not yet received from CPA. Do you have anything to update on that, or do you want me to move to item 8 right away?
Move to item A right away. That is the
Okay.
last update that I have.
Okay, so item A, review of balance sheet and income statement for fiscal year end 3/31/23 and 3/31/24. Fiscal year end 2025 balance sheet and income statement have not been completed by the accountant. Okay. So I'll open the floor for discussion on this item.
And if you notice in your packet, 2023 is on the top, 2024 is immediately following. This is 2023 the first one.
Do you happen to have any update on when the account's planning for 24 or 25 end?
When I talked to Leah about it last week, she said I'm working on this as fast as I can.
And just for clarification on these balance sheets, they are just the low rent program. It does not include cortisone.
Correct.
So this is just the balance sheet for the 3 programs under low rent. And there's a pretty significant difference between the 23 fiscal year end and 24 on the net position.
Melissa, do you have any just overarching managers'
review were
perspective,
coming.
yeah.
I was not here in 23.
Right, yeah, I know
So
that.
I came in
understand.
late, so I have no idea what was really
Okay.
going on during 23. 2024, I came in and we have done a lot of changes.
Mhm.
We have done policy changes, we have done culture change, we have done protocol change. We have worked hand in hand with HUD, specifically since we didn't have a board for 6 months and the prior one was not truly interested in managing projects. I have worked hand in hand with HUD, and so we are moving forward with modernizing and catching up on deferred maintenance that hadn't happened for 15 years. So there's a lot of change, and there's a lot of change yet to come related to the modernization of units and updating them. So there's going to be lots of activity in improving our units.
And one of the things that Melissa and I have been working on, which is in the board's packet for today as well, is an updated and a little more comprehensive budget. And Astrid, on the back end, was really giving us a lot of her feedback on the financial pieces. There were some concerns regarding operations, but I think we've been able to hammer the majority of that out. And I think what we're looking at, though, and I'm wondering, do we know when the additional mortgage was taken out on
We're
Horizon?
still waiting.
We still don't know.
We still don't know. And
Okay.
they're apparently having some technical difficulties on being able to access electronically all of those documents as well, is what we're being told. It had to have been sometime between 2008 and 2015. I will tell you that it's probably closer to the 2008, which is when the previous ED Shire came in.
Okay.
So Helen Beltry retired 2007, 2008,
Mhm.
and Shire immediately followed Beltry.
Okay.
So
Do we have any old audits somewhere that date back to that?
they probably are in, lots of things went home to a house that has now burned to the ground. Otherwise, they may be in long-term storage in this building, which we will get to over the next couple of months on Sundays, where we can organize, because there were just stacks of files left over there, so.
Was the original, is the auditor that did last audit the same auditor that they've had now? Okay.
No, by HUD regulation,
I thought so.
you have to change. You have to change auditor, so you cannot have the same one for an extended period of time.
Okay. And I think the most significant is the end of fiscal year 23, there was a revenue gain, but in fiscal year 24, there's an obvious substantial loss.
Substantial loss.
Right.
And fiscal year ending 24 is where I came in and really started hammering away at things that needed to be changed.
Do we have any idea what might have led to those substantial losses in that year? Is it?
Lack of board action
Okay.
was part of the issue, and then working hand in hand with HUD on all of these major projects that are just hitting and continue to hit because of the cost. One of our biggest hits in fiscal year ending 2024, in 2016, HUD sent a rule out to all public housing agencies that by 2018 we had to be nicotine-free. So we implemented it by policy, but we didn't enforce it. And so one of our biggest hits as people have moved out is testing for nicotine and testing for drugs. And one unit alone was $22,000 to eradicate the drugs.
Okay.
And that's one of multiple units that we've had where it's not, the nicotine is a fraction of that, but it's when it's fentanyl and methamphetamine
Right.
and.
Okay.
And then you had asbestos in a few.
And then we have asbestos in multiple units, and so that is also part of that.
It's a prolonged process to get rid of that stuff. So you
Yeah.
can't just go in, vacuum the carpet, paint
Right.
the unit, and hand it over to the next tenant. You need to have much more extensive renovations done, gutting of
Yes.
walls.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of those units that we eradicated for drugs was the methamphetamine level was such that it would indicate it was a meth lab in there. And we also tested for asbestos. So we already know that we're going to completely gut to the studs and completely remodel, but because of the meth levels, thank you, that one, even if it would not have tested for asbestos because of the methamphetamine levels, we would have had to have gutted to clean that before I can put somebody else in there.
So let's take the extraordinary outlier, obviously, that has this extreme eradication piece to it. But if a unit goes vacant, what is the normal turnaround time for something to come back online if it's simply just testing and?
Well, if it tests, are you talking testing for asbestos or testing for nicotine?
Well, and I would assume too, we've got lead paint in some of these units because they're substantially older, or?
We had already eradicated the lead paint issue
Okay.
long before I got here. So sometime in the late 2000 teens, we had already addressed our lead paint issue. So that's not an issue for us now.
Okay.
In the best of environments, if somebody moves out and we don't have nicotine in there, so we don't have to eradicate for that, it depends on the size of the unit. So a studio, which is our smallest unit, HUD gives us X number of days that we have to turn it around before we start getting dinged. We have to have it turned around and ready to rent within 30 days or we start getting dinged.
Okay.
Even now if there's an extenuating circumstance, then we communicate that with HUD and document why we're asking for additional time or asking to take it offline, which with these asbestos units, that's what's happening, is we can't eradicate fast enough because that is gutting all of the sheetrock, it is gutting all of the insulation, it is pulling tiles off the floor, because one of the places that we're finding asbestos is in the mastic or the glue that glues down that floor covering. So it is from the ceiling to the floor, wall to wall, front to back, and that is an extensive process.
Yeah, and you can't do it with own labor because the asbestos has to be disposed in certain
Correct.
landfills that accept that. It's expensive.
Yes.
So you need to hire companies to do that for you. Meaning,
Yes.
the housing authorities depend on third-party contractors, and Trinidad is not the navel of the world.
You don't say.
I thought they were beating down the doors outside.
So our contractor will come down, our selected contractor for the abatement is coming down from Colorado Springs.
Okay.
So,
And in budget review, I mean, you and I talked about the offline units, and I think there's 17 still offline, is that correct?
correct.
She just submitted 2 more today.
2 more today.
And I did submit 2 more today, and we have another one that will be tested next week. So we will have another one, because I do think that because of the build ban or the years where we were building, we are going to have asbestos in every single one of our units, is my expectation.
Okay.
Sorry.
So I know when we looked at those numbers with the 17 units offline, I mean, just rough ballpark, that's a loss of about $114,000 in revenue a year at this point. So I think we need to keep that in mind as to where some of that net operating loss came from.
Correct.
So it is a challenge, but I think it's a challenge that we can definitely get through.
Yes, agreed.
It's just time. Okay.
Yes.
Is it possible for the next official board meeting to get a list of the specific units that are offline?
Yeah, absolutely.
When they were taken offline and what the status is, so that we can get an idea of how long they were offline, what, if it takes longer, what's the holdup, just to get a feel for it.
Sure.
And any sort of like project management out, like a realistic, based on current issues, like when we can expect, because the whole goal is, our mission is to increase opportunities for affordable housing. So if I'm like, we could just get 3 online, right, in the next 6 months or something. I mean, but just a realistic project management.
And I think
would
one of
love
the
that
good
too.
things
Thank
is
you.
that because she proposed the operations director's position, which is primarily going to do that, is build that
Correct.
project management timeline for
Yeah.
those units.
What's under
That
the
should be
numbers?
helpful.
And it shows it's also center offline.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
So
It's
in
in
your
the
packet, past all of your financial, keep on going, it's literally probably towards the bottom of your, not quite towards the, but that's the financials, we'll go past that. Your occupancy report tells you already what is HUD approved
yeah, that one.
undergoing modernization.
And it gives the unit.
And it
numbers
gives
on
the
that.
unit number. What it doesn't give you guys is addresses. So you're getting close.
Yes.
Am I going the right direction?
You're not now going the right direction. It's
It's actually right behind your bylaws.
right behind bylaws, so you're
Yes.
close. You're in
Oh,
bylaws
yeah.
right now.
Right.
And the resolutions, behind the resolutions, yeah?
So go to the first page right there. So that will tell you already what unit is off. It doesn't give you necessarily street addresses, but
It's the unit numbers.
it's the unit,
that
it's
we
the
have to
ID,
use
it's the
to
ID,
have.
it's the identification number, the unit identification number.
And she submits that to you every board.
Every-
the
yeah, every
update.
day.
But what I would be looking for is for each unit a little overview as to when it comes.
So that's on
offline.
your report. So I'm coming around. So number of days, the current tenant. So this is number of days that it's been offline.
Yeah.
So this one is building number 13. It's a 2-bedroom. It's been off 206 days. It's undergoing modernization.
Yeah, but 206 days is quite some time. I would like to get
Yes.
you, where's the bottleneck? What,
Yeah,
yeah, what takes so long?
from a construction,
Yeah, yeah.
a
Like you
general,
said,
general contractor standpoint.
project management, you have normally timelines as to electricians needs to go in, how long does it take for them to do that? The carpenters have to go in, the guys who pull off the walls, the third-party contractors for asbestos and other stuff. And you need to stack it, so, because not everybody can do it, say.
Correct. Yes,
And then you
absolutely.
need to have 20 units or 17 units, whatever the number is, and then you need to stack
Yes.
it across the board, and that's quite a challenge.
It is a huge challenge, and that's where this operations director position that we interviewed last week, we have not made any final decisions. This project is that first task for that operations director.
Yeah.
So,
Quick question on this. So when you're going into test, how long does it normally take to get results back on those testing? Does it vary or
it
is
varies. It varies because it's, the company that comes down from Pueblo. They come down when they have multiple units, not just ours, but others, to make it pay for their trip. And consistently, it's 10 to 15 days before we get any kind of results. Now, if we want to pay for fast results, which I don't want to do, then we can get it usually within 3 to 5 business days. And those are business days. The 10 to 15 is business days, it's not calendar.
I guess my only
So-
thing would be the 10 to 15 days I'd be fine with, but if they're only coming down, let's say once every 3 months because they don't have enough units to make the trip down.
They come down a lot more often.
Do they come down more than that? Okay.
Yeah. So, and they'll be down again day after tomorrow, so they'll be down in the area on Wednesday.
Okay.
So
And with
another-
that being said, she also has to remind you, you have to have so many lined up in order to get them to come. They want to
Yes.
work the domino effect.
Yeah, no, and
Sure.
that's what I get,
So
yeah.
that's- And that
Yeah.
takes a long
And that-
process, so we're trying to line that up now. It's been a long process.
It's been a process, and the
Now that
abatement,
lineup will also be the director of operations.
that's gonna get transitioned off my desk and off of Kathy's desk.
Okay.
And the abatement company, it is the same thing. It is scheduling, so they just come down and do one after the other, after the other, after the other, after the other. When I talked with my point of contact, it is 3 to 5 days per unit, depending on the size. So a studio, of course, is going to be torn out a whole lot faster than a
Sure.
4-bedroom, 1.5 bath unit. But he feels that they can do 3 to 5 days across the board. And if they need to have 3 teams to get us done a little bit faster, he's willing to do that, which I completely appreciate, so,
Did you feel confident in your
yes.
the candidates? Okay, good.
Yes, absolutely,
Good, good.
we did. We had internal as well as external.
Good.
And I would come in and ask the last question of the candidate, which was, do you have any questions for us? And then answer any of their questions. And one of them, I did not have that capability because I was not in the building. I was at another building. I was at a meeting with the police department, but, so I will meet with him at the very end of my day tomorrow, and hopefully can come together with the interviewing panel and discuss the strengths and areas for development of every candidate that we had, and hopefully extend an offer. I'm hoping by Thursday, because we're closed on Friday, so we'll see.
Okay.
It's good. It's good.
All right.
Oh, yeah, that was in the package before the holiday.
The holiday.
Yes, Good Friday.
Okay, do we need to take action on each of these financial items?
Not individually, you can just do it all at the end.
Okay. So item B is year-to-date profit and loss income statements ending 1/31/25, 2/28/25, and 3/31/25. Requested repeatedly from CPA but not received.
Correct.
Additional item C, rent rolls review for each program for month ending 3/31/25. Item D is review and approval of THA low rent, financial statements, bank reconciliations for July 2004 through December 2024. Item E is.
Excuse me, Chairman,
Go ahead.
July 2024, not 2004, unless
Oh.
you want to sit here for 20 years and go through.
Thank you. July 2024 through December 2024. Review and approval of HCVP Section 8, financial statements, bank reconciliation, July 2024 through December of 2024. Item F, review and approval of management fund, financial statements, bank reconciliation, July 2024 through December 2024. And item G, review and approval of Cortisone Square financial statement, bank reconciliations, July 2024 through December 2024.
And your rent rolls are in there. It just hit me that I did not white out tenant names, so tenant names should not be shared and you guys should not be seeing them. So moving forward, I will double check and triple check that I did my
We
job.
actually have a report where we can log in.
We need to run it.
I'll have to show whoever ran those.
Yeah.
And I think we ended up, because I couldn't find those, so I pulled them out of it. But I will show them. at-
We will, yes. So moving
Okay.
forward, you will not see tenant names at all moving forward, so. So rent roll, this is for through the end of March only, because we run this at end of month as part of our end of month or month close process. So without going through every single individual page, if you look at page 9 of your rent roll report, you will see, you see the date leased, not that that really matters, but you see the average rent. So on average across all public housing, and this is public housing again, this is not Corazon Square. All public housing participants, your average rate of rent that they are paying is $308 for 16, which are your highest 16, and then 174, which are your lower income individuals. Your average rent across those is $238.12.
How is the math calculated?
There is a worksheet that is used and filled out for every single participant when they lease up, and then their mid-year, and then their annual recert. And so at those recertification appointments, if they have any income change up or down, if they have not chosen to tell us in the meantime, it is picked up through those processes.
So once in a while you have negative balance. Is that a credit? or-
That is usually a credit. So someone has overpaid perhaps, and they're using up their credit throughout the next month or months.
Okay.
So you're gonna see a lot of those, what's utility? credits come
Reimbursements.
out of,
Yeah.
Because we turn sprinklers on next month. And
Yes.
after that, they get to turn in
And then
their
they-
utility bills.
Correct,
So
for
you'll see
water.
a lot of credits running.
And so you will see a lot of credits, and that happens, board approves that in May, and turns that off in October. So starting in May, once it's approved at the next board meeting, tenants already know that we do water reimbursements every year. They have to pay whatever their usual minimum balance is
For that household
for that household,
usage, yeah.
and we then give them credit for the excess water for their sprinkler systems to keep their grass going. Not every unit has sprinkler systems. Some do, some do not. So,
In general, with the annual assessments, you do, all those annual certifications, are we up to date and they're just like clockwork? There's no
they're just
room to
automatic
kind
with the
of-
housing
Yeah.
specialists. They know, and they just
Yeah.
put ticklers in their
Good.
calendar.
That's
And
good.
also the computer
And,
generated.
and,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's automatic reports if they're running their reports, but I have given them both instruction.
Mhm.
You need to be looking at when you house them and when your 6-month is and when your annual is, and you need to be reaching out. And they're doing pretty well with that.
Good,
So
good, that's good.
The city of Trinidad has a water restriction or something
Yeah.
right now going on. Would that affect that?
No. It may affect the bills and when people can water, but we govern that anyway, because we are technically the owners of these units. So if there are water restrictions, when we turn on our sprinkler systems, we're gonna follow whatever those water restrictions are. So if they say that this side of the street can water on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and this side of the street can water Mondays and Fridays, or whatever that is, we're controlling that by how we're programming when we turn them on. But as far as.
So you can respond to the requirements.
Yeah, we can respond if there's watering restrictions. The tenants, they don't turn them on and they don't manage them. But when they get a bill that shows water usage for the sprinkler, they can bring that in and they get that credit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this summer's gonna be a bit of a challenge. A couple reasons. One, we obviously know there's a utility rate hike going in right now with the city, which is substantial. It's about 4%. Sewer is next in line for that increase, which is not gonna be a pleasant adjustment.
Not at all.
We're down a water tower right now, so I think we're gonna be significantly restricted this summer, and we are in a drought.
And I say, we're also in a drought,
Yeah,
so
so we're in a drought every year here, so we're kinda used to that.
that doesn't, not gonna change anytime soon, but help yourself.
So the sprinklers, are they in the backyard or?
They're primarily the front yard.
Okay.
A handful of our units have them front and back.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they are, I would say 80% of our entire sprinkler system is in the front yard only.
Are they using the front yard or are they using the backyard?
They use both, but backyards don't have, a lot of our backyards do not have sprinkler systems.
Yeah. No, what I'm getting at is maybe it's time to change things into the drought resistant, not green lawns, but.
The xeriscape kind of,
Yeah, if they would not be using the front.
So before we were told by HUD that we had to put in a sprinkler system, that's kind of the system that we had gone to, is we had done a lot of xeriscaping. And we were cited on an inspection because they were not being taken care of to HUD standards, and so they had weeds, and so they said, fine, here's your rule, you get to put sprinkler systems in or grass, or don't put sprinkler systems, we don't care, but we want to see green. And so that is why we did what we were told to do. I don't know that HUD will necessarily, because that rule would have come from Washington DC. Does Washington DC know what Western Colorado looks like? Probably not, because they've probably never been here. But I do think that there are things that we can do. Now, one of the things that's on our 5-year plan, a lot of our lots are great big in the back.
yeah, they're huge.
They're huge. And so one of the many projects on our 5-year plan, we also don't have off-street parking. We're going to take a lot of the backyards and we're gonna make off-street parking in the back of our units.
Makes sense.
That's a
And,
great idea.
and
Having
provide,
had total runs of teenagers in their cars.
exactly, and we have a tenant that her car has been hit 3 times, because it is on-street parking. And so we are going to put, that is on our 5-year plan, but we're also going to provide small storage sheds out back. They will not have lights, they will not have plumbing, they are simply going to be a storage shed because our units do not have a lot of storage. They also cannot keep lawnmowers outside, they can't keep gas or propane tanks, so if they had a storage unit in the back of their yard, it would also give them room to put things that they, I mean, and we do have an issue with people keeping lawnmowers and gas cans and propane tanks and grills and everything else right up next to their house, which becomes a violation for the fire chief. So you have to have a 10-foot perimeter from anything flammable. Well, if you have a storage unit, guess where all your stuff goes? So that is on our 5-year plan to help alleviate some of that. And most of our front yards are not, they're not that big.
No, the front yards are not large, it's the backyards.
But think about when these units were built in the 1960s and 70s. Where did your kids play and where did you hang out?
In the backyard.
In the backyard.
Yeah.
So, it's just part of that modernization.
I think the math is wrong how you arrive at the average rent.
Okay?
It includes basically the balance divided by the 44. Just taking the first one. You use the balance divided by the 44 rooms or units to arrive at the average rent, but that includes vacant projects, properties. It includes the ones which have a negative
The credit on account.
a credit on their account, yes. So it's not a true
It's not a true average.
average.
But that's generated from the actual fax system, and it takes in everything. It takes in all of it.
Yeah, but it distorts it the way it's doing it here.
I don't know how we would change that. That's a report out of the system, so I really don't know how that would be changed. It's everything that is actually put into the system.
It's higher than that, way higher, I think.
Are you talking about the actual revenue coming off of that?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if you divide the revenue, if you divide the balance
Mhm.
by the apartment numbers, and in this case it's 44, well, by the number of tenants.
Yeah, no,
It's not a true reflection.
Yeah, so your revenues should be actually higher off of this report.
Because you lump in the vacant units, which is 0, and you need to back them out. And you need to have the true rent they have to pay, net of any reimbursements.
Right, because you're also inflating the losses with the vacants.
Correct. Yes.
You're inflating the loss on there as well, so you're giving a dollar value to the loss on that vacancy as part of that average. So to get a true number, we'd want to take all the
Take all
actual,
take all your vacants completely out and not calculate at all.
not off those.
Not off of those.
Yeah, because you're giving that vacancy that's bringing no revenue or revenue.
You're right.
So we've got to look at how we can get a more accurate rent roll.
We can probably export, I'm gonna guess I can export to Excel. I would have to work with our software folks. But I'll
Okay.
bet you if I export it into Excel, then I can.
Yeah, because that would be really helpful to know, because that would also give us a truer lie of the actual losses month to month on those vacancies. Now, knowing federal systems, we would like to think that we can export to Excel.
Maybe. I'm not gonna say.
But I will say, I don't know if that's gonna happen, so.
Let me work on that, because
Okay.
I don't know. I will pose the question, put it that way.
But I definitely think that that's accurate. I see what you're saying.
That's a different purpose, how that is calculated. It's not for us to get a sense of what's the average rent.
Yeah. But at least gives us a better lay of the land on the revenue stream. So, okay. Other questions on items A through G? And obviously I put some big work packets for DHS together, but yours takes the top this time. This is a big one.
This was terrible.
It's a lot, I
It
know.
really was. It was, I mean, it was 6 months of
Yeah.
financials.
I spent the whole weekend going through the packet.
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay.
Sorry.
That's what we're here to do. But,
And the last 2 weeks where we camped out, where I camped out in town.
Okay.
Why do you think it was 2 attachments? Because I couldn't scan it in at one.
Yeah, I figured. I will say though, thank you for the efforts to put this board packet together, because it was pretty detailed with a lot of information, so it really gave us a good idea of what financially we're looking at.
Yep.
And then on that last portion, just to point out for the board members, if you look at the Corazon balance sheets, towards the back.
They're always at the, pretty much the back of the
Yeah.
packet.
Although the reconciliations, of course, zero. If you look at the balance sheets, there is a net loss to that agency.
Yep.
So we'll have to dig into that a little bit deeper and have discussion of that later on in the meeting. But it does seem like for at least the last couple of years that that's been operating in a net loss.
It is.
Okay.
I will tell you, it's been operating in a net loss for
A lot longer than
a lot
couple
longer
years,
than
yeah.
that. I'm gonna tell you, it's probably closer to 10.
10 years. Okay.
On the audit, what we found out is we have an audit, we have two audits, one for Corazon Square and one for the whole THA, which includes Corazon Square. Corazon Square is not included in those. So it's a little bit confusing. You guys want to figure it out, but the audits have everything in there.
Okay. And we can do a motion to consent agenda, all of them together.
All of them together,
Okay.
yes. Yes, you can.
So if the board has no questions, I'll entertain a motion.
And the motion's to approve that we're okay with A through I?
Yeah, so it'll be a motion of consent agenda, financial reviews for fiscal year end 2025, minus the quarter four data, and all items A through G.
I motion A through G.
Okay.
So moved.
Roll call?
Commissioner Lund?
Yes.
Commissioner Aragon?
Yes.
Commissioner Kamars?
Yes.
Commissioner Crane?
Yes.
Okay. Item 7, overview of board and commissioner purpose, function, responsibilities. Item A, summary of responsibilities, example, review, and discussion. And item B, bylaws with discussion to update and bring current.
So this is basically rolled forward from last month. We did not get to discuss. So what you have in your packet is summary of responsibilities. This was provided by Nelrod, which is one of our consulting groups. And then the bylaws are our existing bylaws from 1961 with a few amendments and updates. So with the Board of Commissioners summary of responsibilities, this is not written in stone at all. This is what the overview of most public housing agencies see as a summary of responsibilities for their boards of commissioners. Not to say that we can't develop our own, we can, but this really is what this overarching position as an advisory board looks like. And you got like a volume of stuff there.
I'm going, I promise.
Okay, all right.
Now, I know we hold an annual meeting once a year. Are staff involved with the board in that annual meeting, or is it just strictly leadership?
Historically has not been, but I do think that it needs to be. I do think that with that annual meeting, this is what my vision with a new board is, that you guys we need to be doing strategic planning and coming together as a board and as staff. Then, at that annual meeting, it shouldn't be a surprise because those conversations and those interactions have been going on all along.
Right.
And I had asked and prepared staff and reminded them that staff will get, one of them said, well, you're picking on us. No, I'm not picking on y'all. But to come and do a 5 to 10 minute, they are the ones at the ground level doing the job to give you guys, this is what a housing specialist looks like, and this is what they're doing. This is what a maintenance tech looks like. This is what a lawn care person. And these are this is the good, the bad, and the ugly of all their positions. This is what's working well, it is what it is, and this is how we can improve. Because I think that helps, it helps me tremendously, but then when I come to you guys and say, hey, this is a suggestion, you heard it from the person who's doing the job, what are ideas and suggestions? So I think it's just a good plan.
I agree. We do that for ours.
Okay.
Supervisors come in and give a presentation on different types of programs that the staff work on, or staff come in and give presentations. So I think having an invite to different employees of the Housing Authority would be great to have them come in and give us kind of an idea of what they encounter day to day.
Correct.
What challenges they truly face. And I think that'll also help, not just with strategic planning, but also with financial management, because then we'll be able to put money where we know we need to help support those folks that are on the ground doing that work. And I think it's important that they have a voice at the table. They work for this agency. They're the ones with the insight and the ideas.
Correct. They
We're
know.
gonna take their recommendations and your recommendations. Our job is to make sure we can bring the money in to keep the lights running and the toilets flushing, but ultimately,
Yes.
you guys make those recommendations to us.
Yeah.
That's it, but you do have a working board. I mean, these people want to work, and,
Good. So starting next month, I'm going to start with literally, like critically logically, when somebody applies, where do they go? What's the first process? So I will kind of start with the application specialist. When somebody applies, that's what that process looks like. When they get housed, that's where your housing specialist comes in. What does that look like? Then maintenance, when they move in, maintenance meets them and they say, here's what you do, and here's the checklist, and here's all the things that we're gonna look through. So really, you guys kind of, over the few months, you really see how all of those pieces really do come together and how they really do fit. You probably know more intimately, because you're a participant, than anybody else, but I still think that it's good for everybody to hear that. And then also, when maintenance has to go in and clean, we learned late Friday afternoon, we have a unit that the participant didn't bother to tell us she was moving, did not secure the unit, and so we had people that shouldn't have been in that unit because the door lock was removed. It wasn't just broken, it was just full on straight up removed. And what does that look like for our staff? And I don't think that this was a drug unit, but one of our units, it was a drug unit, and when I saw what it was, I did not allow maintenance. Our maintenance staff is not licensed, trained, bonded, or insured to remediate a meth lab. So to really hear this is what they see on a day-to-day basis in the role of their position, I think is incredibly important.
I do have a question for you. Are you guys federally mandated to catalog and file tenant complaints?
Not to say that we won't be moving forward with new administration, but historically, we have not been.
I was just wondering.
There's no grievance policy, or is it?
There is an
There's-
in-house grievance policy. It's all in-house.
But it's just in-house. It's not governed by HUD. It's not
considered
mandated on
informal.
what that process
And
looks
it's
like.
part of
But any tenant could call HUD.
Right.
Sure.
It's absolutely their right to do.
Yeah, fair housing.
Okay.
That's absolutely their right to do.
And I think for clarification on the agenda, these next pieces, are these approval pieces or more discussion?
No, they are
pieces?
discussion. And I can label them as discussion.
Yeah, if you wouldn't
to make
mind
it
if we
easy.
can separate it out on the agenda, what are the approval items? And then a second section that's just discussion would be helpful.
Absolutely, I can do that.
Thank you.
On the summary responsibilities, and then you with the nail rod, like it could be this big, right? These are all the things. I'm already thinking of priorities. You said there's some stuff that, we're thinking like procurement policy, like of the things we don't have, those things that would be priority items for us to be part of our goals of achieving. I would be interested in what you think, like that, either low-hanging fruit or things that we need to, it would make you feel more confident and
I think-
secure as an ED.
Sleep better at night?
Done. Yeah,
When you lay the
sleep
head
better.
down on the pillow?
Yeah.
I think there's policy development across all levels of the agency, quite honestly, Cindy, that it's all like burning high priority.
Yeah.
It's a personnel policy manual. That's, again, waiting, it's on our attorney's desk waiting for approval. But it's other governing policies. When I talk with other directors and I talk with HUD, they're like, well, what's your policy? We don't have one. And so procurement is part of that. But along that line is, what's the process for, within that procurement policy, what is the limit before I have to get board approval? And it varies. I mean, legitimately, it varies. But one of our, as far as HUD is concerned, on my signature, I can purchase up to $250,000. Do I think that that is the best plan? No, and if I got to that point, it was, hey HUD, this is what I want to do and here's all my documentation. But I will tell you, one of the others, every other, whether it's Pueblo, whether it's Springs, whether it's Grand Junction, whether it's Fort Collins, whether it's some of the others smattered throughout the state, all of their procurement policies with the bigger, well-developed agencies are pretty descriptive. The smaller ones, yeah, not so much. But I have nothing to hide. If you guys want to see financial records, you want to ask me, what did this check go for? I can probably tell you off the top of my head, especially if it was a high dollar something. But to be able to say, well, you have to get board approval for anything over $500, legitimately, I can't buy a water heater for $500. It's not practical. So most of the bigger agencies, it varies between $5,000 and $10,000 before I have to go get board approval. That's just like one example. But when we look at some of the other things that we really needed board awareness, I think, and I don't know that this is a policy because it's not very often that we get asked and it's on this agenda, but properties that become available for sale. There's a whole acquisition and a disposition process that HUD outlines.
Right.
But above and beyond that, there's board conversations that I do think have to happen. So that's not even procurement, but just in general, some of those governing policies, or what do you guys want to know about? I can bore you to tears with detail. I don't know that that's what you necessarily want, but just having a discussion and having kind of those overarching policies, I think is incredibly important.
I agree.
So.
I think one of the biggest things that Melissa and I talked about, especially in preparation of the budget, and I know Astrid and I talked about it on the side, is the budget is going to be a working document moving forward. It's a living, breathing document. We are in its infancy as a new board, putting forward budget notes and information around how the funding streams work. But the next piece that's missing for this agency is not just procurement, but in general fiscal policies that need to be part of both the budget as an adopted document year to year, but also fiscal policies that outline how we as a board make the decisions that support the financials of the organization. And I agree. I think we, as a board, do not want to hinder staff's ability to approve projects, especially like with capital projects that Kathy oversees, because those are big ticket items with a lot of spending, and if every time there has to be a board approval, that's going to really hinder progress and timelines. But I think internal procurement and fiscal is more or less what we need to put in place.
Agreed.
I do have a question though on the big projects, Kathy. Do you have to put those out to bid, RFP, RFQ them?
Melissa guides me in all that.
Okay.
I take all my directive from her when, for instance, the asbestos is in full gear right now. She goes ahead and gives me directive after she sees where our funding's at.
And we did go. We did
So
go.
we do RFP.
Just as a routine.
Yes.
Now, I don't, by HUD's rule,
Yeah, no, I've read that.
I don't have to.
Which was interesting.
It's completely,
We appreciate it. I do.
I just think I need to cover myself and I need to cover the agency.
Yeah.
And so to be able to say that we picked this contractor and here's why, I don't feel I can comfortably do that. I'm not a construction person. I can't do that without issuing an RFP because in that RFP is the scope of work. Here's what we're needing. It also allows me to be able to say, I'm comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. And so I have chosen to continue to go out for RFP.
I appreciate that because it also, on the back end, limits liability because if that contractor bids and they're awarded that bid and they can't fulfill that bid, then you can say, well, you agreed to fulfill this.
Correct.
Right. Exactly. So I think we just need to, but again, putting those into fiscal policy so that we have it outlined for the agency and that it's an official piece, I think will lend to the consistency of how we move forward with that fiscal management piece. So, okay.
So, and we're getting ready. I don't know that I will do it yet this week. I'm hoping to get a director of operations in here in the next couple of weeks. But one of the next steps is going out for RFP for all the electrical, and here's the scope of work. All the plumbing in these units, here's the scope of work. Here's the scope of work for what we want for windows and the R values that they have to meet and all of those things. So that's all, that is gonna be managed completely by an RFP.
Now, is there opportunity for that new director of operations to maybe meet with other housing authorities that have operations directors and just does the project management?
That's already in their training plan, right?
I figured it was, but I thought it would be a great idea.
It is, it's absolutely a great idea. And so Fort Collins has offered carte blanche, they wanna come up, we will meet in the middle, whatever that is. Pueblo has been nothing but a dynamo in saying, here's what we do, here's how we do it. They have their person, as soon as that person, our new person is named, here's their first 2 weeks on orientation and connection with other agencies that are doing what we are launching to do, so.
That would be good. I also assume that these agencies have, nice structured timeline spreadsheets and project manager.
Yep.
I'd like to imagine they do, but I also work in human health and human services, so we know what that looks like.
I was gonna say, while they may have it on paper, is it legit and is it actually followed? Because things come,
They do. They come up and pop up, and you've got to deal with it.
and you have to deal with it as they arise.
I think the other thing that we have to be realistic is we still have a lot of federal changes that we don't know yet
Yeah.
with current administration that we're facing, and I don't know what that impact's going to look like on projects in the future. So that could be a real
That's gonna be
hindrance.
And that could be a huge hindrance. Yep. So ultimately, I'm gonna say, I was gonna assign you all homework. Look at this and pick apart, and let's develop our own. What does that look like? And if there are things on here that you guys are like, I don't foresee us ever doing that, then there's nothing that says we have to have it in there. But this is, again, just a template that is really, I thought it was pretty helpful. I didn't want to overwhelm you with summaries of responsibilities from 5 different agencies. I chose to go with NELROD because a lot of us are using NELROD as a consulting agency. And the 2 that are out there are NELROD and NARO. And so a lot of your huge agencies like City County of Denver is much more along the lines of using NARO. NARO is kind of their population is bigger housing agencies, but NELROD is very, very, very common among the smaller ones. So.
I think from my perspective, I would appreciate to continue to work with you with budgetary and fiscal pieces.
I'm happy to do that.
If that works for you. I think one of the other big pieces of the board we need to decide is the bylaws, because the bylaws need to be updated significantly.
You don't say.
And I think if we're modernizing our units, we need to modernize the way we do business as a board. So if there's anybody who's interested in tackling that with staff and getting our bylaws updated.
I was gonna ask, is it in a Word document at least?
No.
No.
So we just need someone administrative to do a raw, and
No.
then we could do a line.
Here's what I did
Yeah.
find for this language on the treasurer's position.
Yeah.
HUD actually provides a PDF fillable form of the bylaw outline. We can convert that to a
Through a
Word.
word.
and modify it. So if that makes it easier, I can do that on my end, and we can get a working Microsoft Word document to work from.
And I know and there are a lot of documents. Is there any Google Docs space, Basecamp, Slack, or any place to store or a place to store these documents so that you're not doing this content? You know what I mean? Like I could just see it. That way, when I say, oh, I wonder what see what the HCC contract looks like. Oh, there it is. There's, even if it's an old archive document, that it just be a place for these documents to live that we can see.
There historically has not been, but one of our discussion items
Yeah.
is, do you guys want a tablet, crossover, or a laptop? And part of that is going to be having storage space
Just a cloud.
just it's in the cloud.
Yeah.
So you can access, so that we're not killing trees
Yeah.
every meeting.
Yeah.
Giving you hard copies
Yeah.
moving forward. So that's also on the discussion item, and that's,
Okay,
so if we
cool.
could table till we
Appreciate
get there. A little
Okay,
bit,
no
little bit
worries.
later.
That's good.
Okay. Any other items or questions for item 7, overview of board commissioner purpose, function, and responsibilities?
And if I could, if you guys would review this, and our next meeting is May 14th, I think, hold on.
And I will not be at that meeting. We'll have a vacation that was booked a year ago. So
Do you want a Zoom link sent to you, or you're like, no, I'm over now?
well, you can try. We'll be at a beach in Mexico, but you can try.
So what you're
Seriously,
saying-
I can. I'm going to be there long enough that I absolutely will make an effort to do that. I will.
But if you don't, I'll know.
But you'll
you're
love the
gonna
back.
read on
I
the
will
beach.
purposely sit on the beach with the camera going to the back and just, yeah, all right. But yes, let's try to do a Zoom, and I'll try. It's all about if there's internet working.
Making us jealous, huh?
Exactly.
In the background.
I go there. I go there all
I mean, can we move the meeting to the beach? in the next-
You can get it approved for
Because
all of us
no.
to fly and have hotels, then yes, absolutely, Chairman.
Logistically, that would be a nightmare of a flight because Kathy would have to be posted every time zone we cross.
I know. Give me a break, please.
She's like, no.
Although Kathy, if you're taking minutes on a Mexico beach, yeah. All right. Item 8, occupancy report, March 2025.
So this occupancy report, we've kind of already touched on. Chairman, if you want to drill down more.
Maybe next time.
Okay.
Can I give you some kind of instruction with the items I would like to?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if I can delegate to staff if I can't export into Excel,
Yeah.
so sure. That would
Just
be
so we
good.
have a little bit more reachable.
I think that would be helpful.
So moving forward, item 9, I have nothing to report under Secretary's report. Usually that's findings from HUD or something like that.
Just real quick on item 8, is that an approval or just discussion only?
Just-
It's just
Okay.
discussion.
Just information.
It's
Just checking.
information only.
Information.
Information only.
Okay. Item 10 then, old business?
So old business, so we have a fourplex, it was 301, 303, 305, and 307 High Street. Just to the south of that property is 3 city lots along High Street, and then 1 city lot in an L shape on 4th Street, which the city has closed off 4th Street through there. This family has relocated to Houston for the husband's work. Prior board heard about this available property, like I think their last meeting. But the property owners are hoping that we are interested, and quite frankly, I'm very interested in acquiring that property. HUD will not allow us to leave the single-family home on 4 city lots and manage it, because we could certainly demolish that home and build a planned community apartment complex in there and house more folks.
What's the exact address?
Our fourplex is 301
Yeah.
High, so this is actually, I think it's 315.
Yeah.
High is the legitimate address
Okay.
of this, and again, it's 4 city lots, 3 along High and 1 along 4th Street, so it's in an L. That I am very interested in because we would, ultimately, if we, with board approval and HUD approval, we would acquire that. We would tear down that fourplex on 3rd and High because it is at its end of its life cycle, quite honestly. And we cannot do any modifications. It is a cinder block building, and so it is worn out and little. And we would make a planned community in there with on-site laundry, off-street parking, those types of things. So I am very interested. They have not listed it officially with any real estate agent. They're hoping that they don't have to because if we're interested, we will just deal with them through the process.
So the potential for the property, what kind of development would we look at? How many units total?
That to a certain degree would be governed by HUD. So we, right now, our definition is 198 units. We can work with their tactical services group, and we could apply for approval to grow. But before I even start that process, the board has to approve that, yes, you're interested in moving forward. Because if you guys aren't interested, then I'm not going to jump through 50 hoops.
Sure.
Is it currently zoned multifamily?
I'm sorry?
Is it zoned multifamily?
No, it is, I do not believe that it's zoned multifamily at this point.
It's
It is, yeah. So if you guys want to drive by it and kind of get a visual on it, I'm completely comfortable. I can meet you over there and answer basic questions. I'm not the owners. I have simply talked to Hector and Connie multiple times about this.
Is the city interested in selling the adjacent lots?
The city doesn't own it. This family owns
It's
it.
private.
It's privately owned. It's
It's
privately
not just
owned.
the houses, it's the
It's-
adjacent lots as well?
They own 3 lots and along High and then 1 along 4th Street. So it is wholly owned by a family.
You say that you want to do it like a community base, would that mean like just say 4 apartments, or would it be like stacked apartments to make it a little bit more for?
I would prefer that we do a level of 3. So, bless you. So there's, in talking with another developer, it's the multiples of 3. So it's 3 floors, 6 floors, 9 floors, 12 floors. I don't foresee us putting up something that's 6 floors high legitimately. I do think that it's probably 3 floors and probably somewhere between 20 and 30 apartments ranging in size. And it's mixed, it would have to be mixed use, under fair housing, so I can't discriminate against someone with a disability or someone with a limitation. So it would be mixed use for whoever was eligible to get in there, ranging from a studio up to a 3-bedroom probably. I don't know that I'd put a 4-bedroom apartment in there. I think that would be a lot of square footage for one family.
It would have to take almost a floor.
Yeah, so that's kind of, in talking with developers and talking with other directors that have put up, Pueblo just added a new apartment complex. I like what they did.
Who's the developer?
What's
Who's
that?
the developer of the building?
I don't know, I'm just
Oh,
casually driving
you just
by.
said that looks cool.
That looks cool and it's public housing, and when we get to that point, I'll figure out who the developer is,
Yeah.
Cindy. But it's on a 3-floor building, under ADA, I would not have to put in an elevator. Now, if I went 4 or above, then under ADA, I do have to. But our limitation down here is we don't have an elevator servicing company. They're already coming down from Springs, Denver, or from Santa Fe, or in from Amarillo. And so I would probably not put in an elevator, because it's yet one more thing to maintain, and you have to have a service contract and all of those other things, which just kind of drives cost.
And they're expensive.
They are hugely expensive.
Ours is a bleed out leak
Yeah.
of an elevator.
Well, and that's part of the problem is the elevator. So that's kind of what my vision is. But I do think, and we would not get approval. I already have had multiple discussions with HUD. we're defined in HUD as a scattered site housing authority because we have sites all the way throughout town. That would not be approved currently. So we would have to look at planned communities, apartment complexes, to get approval by HUD.
For what?
For what?
Would they, how much would HUD pay for it? Help us pay for it? Because
I don't know, Astrid, at this point. That would be once we apply for a permit basically to increase our size, that discussion is what they would start addressing us at that point. Because right now, we have room for a whopping 2 units
to grow,
to grow without applying for permission to,
does that count Corazon Square into it?
no. Corazon is a standalone all by itself. On the public housing side only, we are defined at 198 units. So we have 2 units up on Carbon that we're starting to dispose of. So that gives us our 2. Well, I'm not gonna build another duplex for 2 units. I wanna go much bigger than that and be much more efficient than what we have now.
So on a range, how many applications do we have waiting on the side that could fill these, like, the second we buy them to start bringing in the revenue from those?
Our wait list is broken out by what the size of the unit that they're looking for. So our 1-bedroom units, that wait list is 2 years plus out. We don't have enough units for 1-bedrooms. 3 bedrooms, it's probably 9 months. 2 bedrooms, we've just now opened the wait list again. And the studios, we've opened the wait list. So, but the 1-bedrooms, and I would do a few studios, they're not high on the want list, I'm just gonna say. But 1-bedrooms absolutely. And if I could build an entire complex of just 1-bedroom units, which I won't get approved for, but literally I could clean up a 2 to 2.5 year wait list. And that's more than 30 people, by the way. So, and there are people that legitimately will drop off a wait list before they ever get to the top.
Well, and I don't think the housing crisis in Los Angeles County is going away anytime soon. And I think the reality is we have to start thinking about adding units in for profitability, but also because there's a lot of people waiting.
Correct.
And open that up. And honestly, looking at Corazon, it's going to probably take us longer to get that than it is to acquire new land and.
Yeah, but the funding has to come from somewhere.
Right.
Correct.
And I'm looking at the capital funds guidebook, the 200 pages. I haven't read through it yet, but I saw on the spreadsheet as to what is funded, site acquisition costs, but that probably doesn't include a whole house, it's just,
No, if approved, they'd give us so much of a budget, that would be correct.
we
Like if
probably,
we got approved for the community part of it.
There would be multiple steps where we are providing drawings, architectural drawings. We're providing, here, we've talked to these 3, 4, or 5 contractors, this is what they would bid to do this piece of it. And then at that point, they would make decisions on what they're going to approve and what they're not going to approve. I do think that we would probably have the majority of it HUD financed, whether it was just, we're going to give you this much money, or you're going to get a mortgage or a mix of. I do think that it would probably be a mix of.
grants and
Yes.
funds.
Yes.
How long would a rezoning process in the city take? Because we have public hearings and stuff. Because you probably go from single family to multi-family, and then the height is an issue.
Yeah, we would have to petition the city, we'd have to go through the urban development process with them, planning and zoning, and also, I know this property and those 3 side lots, there's no utility infrastructure on those 3 side lots. That utility infrastructure is just for a single family home. So we're looking at also having to go through that process of foundational and utility infrastructure, ready taps from
Yes.
street in, and we'd have to see if we could support a 20 unit. But I personally think that the project is absolutely something that I would like to investigate deeper, because I think we have an opportunity to put something in place. Because as of right now, the only other property development that I can think of is the MARC program, but that is limited in the number of units that they're going to retain for low-income housing.
Correct.
Um,
And that's a LIHTC project,
Correct.
and it's a housing, it is a, instead of housing choice, it's project-based vouchers. And they're going for their second round of asking CHAPA to fund, because they were not approved last year.
Correct.
And so if CHAPA does not approve,
Yeah.
they're
Sunk.
sunk, they're done.
And mind you, of that project, 40 units, only 14% of those units are going to be held for low income.
Correct.
So
What is that, 5 units?
I believe so.
Mm-hmm.
It's about 5 units only out of the 40.
Yes,
So it doesn't help the waitlist issue that we have.
Nope. No, it does not.
But I mean, any build project that we're looking at acquiring land, tearing down homes and rezoning, it's gonna happen either way. As an agency, we're gonna have to either bite the bullet and do it, or we're just gonna be happy where we're sitting with the status quo.
And I don't want to just be happy with this stuff.
It's a numbers game. You
It
just
is.
need to figure out what the whole thing costs
Correct.
and see if it makes sense.
And then community buy-in.
I think community buy-in.
And I think if we got to that point, I think the community buy-in would be there, Cindy. Sure, there's gonna be naysayers, absolutely, there's gonna be naysayers, because there's always. But to really say this is for the health, wealth, and growth of the community, and this does address these housing limitation issues, if we do this, I do think that we can get community buy-in. Are we gonna get 100% no's? We're never gonna get 100%, so it is what it is on that front, but.
Yeah, I would just be more concerned around neighboring properties and them being concerned with value depreciation on the properties and things of that nature.
Value appreciation.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't see it that way, and that's the thing, is we've got to be able to make sure that it does add value to, because I think there's a huge stigma with public housing that comes, that people don't understand exactly what we're in the business of doing, and that is to help people secure a future and help them to get through hard times and thrive in the long run.
Correct. And one of my goals, and we're not ready to take on, one of the programs that HUD provides, it is called the Housing Counseling Program. And so that program, if we were able to launch this whole project, that is one program that I would, if we had the bandwidth at all as an agency, I would want to bring on. And that is that Housing Counseling Program is a portion of the rent is held in an escrow account, and there's a lot of counseling and support, and families that get into that program have to provide a lot of financials and budgeting and adhere to budgets, but at the end of whatever their term is, the money that you've held in escrow becomes their down on their own place to break the cycle of public housing generations. And we do have generations in housing currently. We are getting ready to, in the next 2 years, we will have the 5th generation of one family. And that is one family that really I would love to work with them to break that cycle. Absolutely, I would like to break that cycle.
And I do think when we're talking about federal administration changes, I think that's one of the biggest things is, it's unfortunate, it's going to be an increase in workload for staff, but the accountability component and not allowing that generational perspective to become the ideal. We've seen that with a lot of agencies that serve at-risk populations, and I think that the current administration's goal is not necessarily to cut funding in all areas, but it's definitely to put more accountability on the individuals who access those services to cut waste in spending. And so I think a program like that to help them get through and ultimately their own place in the long run is what we're going to see pushed forward. So I think having a development project like this that can become that process in some shape or form in the future will help us immensely.
It will help us move forward. So, again, I'm not asking for you guys to make a decision. I'm asking you to drive by and really look at and know that my goal is if we if we were able to do this, that I would absolutely, I would tear down that fourplex that we already own. Right across the street, that whole block is already housing.
Could you print out Google map and swap it and send it to us on the email?
Yeah, I can do that.
So that we exactly know what to look at? I mean,
Yeah, I can absolutely do that.
It's worth looking into.
I can do.
Okay. Any other questions on item 10? Okay. So item 11, new business discussion and possible action items. Item A, fiscal year end 25, final revision to budget review and approval. Item B, fiscal year end 2026 new budget review and approval. Item C, HUD requires Board of Commissioners to complete training. There are lots of free trainings available through HUD Exchange.
You can set that aside for a second.
Okay.
So in your packet, you have it's right behind this binder, this little binder. So the packet right behind this little bound copy, this is the for fiscal year beginning 4/1/24, closing out 3/31/2025 by resolution. And then I have to upload this into HUD that you guys did accept the 2025 budget as it is and moving forward, so.
I don't think we have much choice here since that's.
What we got was already spent.
Yeah.
Because we don't even have the financial, the actuals for the fiscal year ending in end of March 2025.
Do you get 90 days to close out the fiscal year, or are you already drawn it all down?
No, our fee accountant is supposed to be getting us those all by end of April. We should have.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, it's gonna be July or August, the way things are going.
So you can go past 90 days at the end of the fiscal, because you're different, I mean, PHAs are different. I'm talking about like drawing down the from HUD.
We're still working on 23 money in all legitimacy, Cindy.
Yeah.
Because 23 money, when I came in 23, they were spending 18 money and hadn't done anything since. And so we worked very diligently with HUD. We were at risk of having to give back hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars because they had not been managed.
Kathy, 1.2 million is what I have. When I looked at the website where you showed me what we have allocated for 23 and 24 that we haven't used.
So we haven't yet used.
I think the total is around 1.2 million.
So the
Right,
funding,
so
the
when you do
funding,
your monthly draws, what year are you drawing on?
We're pulling off 23 right now.
We're pulling on 23 right now. When I came in 23, they were still pulling on 18, and so we have spent
But
a
keep
lot.
in mind,
money.
we did projects that were supposed to be done 4 years ago.
4 years ago, and
We
we're
did
not
an
done.
enormous amount of projects in 9 months.
Yes,
Millions.
we have done millions of dollars.
She's done millions. She
Big
has
projects.
spent everything that she put in reserves.
So it is more liberal under this particular HUD program.
Yes.
Because the other
Yeah.
programs, you'd be, it's closed out, dead and gone. Money's
Kathy,
gone.
No,
Use it
she
or lose
filed
it.
an extension because she was about to lose them. That was one of the first things she did when she came in.
So what is our extension? I mean, agreements
So
to
the
the prior
extensions-
administration, that's right, those are just my concerns, like where.
the extensions can be refiled over and over, so there's no limit to that. It's quite interesting to see, like, reading through all of the budgetary documents and how to build the budget and what you can encumber and can't encumber. But as long as they are actively within that 5-year plan, correct me if I'm wrong, if they're actively within the 5-year plan and that year might have been, I mean, we could be drawing, because our current plan is
23
Our
to
current
23 to
5-year
27. So we could be pulling 23 monies all the way in 27 still,
Correct.
if we haven't exhausted it all.
We will have
I
exhausted
knew
it by
from
that
capital,
time.
I knew from capital other things, I just was trying to understand. it.
Now, the month-to-month
Cash flow.
operational drawdown, that's different.
That's
That's
completely
separate.
That's
separate.
completely
I
separate.
understand.
Completely different.
I understand that.
So that piece is where the fiscal drawdown changes slightly, but on the 5-year plan, we can draw on those funds as long as we have the extension and HUD's kept those funds open for us. Yeah,
And these two are watching over it like a hawk.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, I do let her know when we need something, but she's very good at, I mean, if there's something we don't understand, she's on the phone with the field officer instantly, so we don't get violations. It's been quite a learning experience, it really has, but,
Yeah.
yes, but,
So we are using those funds now.
We are now using them very quickly, but with 15 years of deferred maintenance and projects that were put off and put off and put off.
It's gonna go quick.
Yeah.
it has gone.
It has gone quick. And as we modernize all of these units, we will use into 27 through, and then Kathy and I are already starting our next 5-year plan on what do we expect, just kind of a forecast conversation with us. What have we done on the current 5-year plan that we just know that we don't have to worry about? What do we think we're gonna get done? And what are new projects that we know that we need to add in the next 5-year plan? And so that 5-year plan, the current one will expire 3/31/27. It will be done and out for public comment, review, all of that by October of 26. So a year-ish.
And keep in mind this, that we're approving the 25 budget that's in the packet. This is the current low rent program. It does not include Corazon.
Correct.
This is just what we can draw on the federal subsidies and then our rent revenues and our other revenue streams
Correct.
that we're approving from prior year.
Correct.
I have a question regarding the projects in general in the 5-year plan. But you can make a motion.
Yep. So are there any questions, discussion, concern on the adoption of fiscal year end 25 final revision to budget review and approval? Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion to approve the 25 budget ending 3/31/2025.
Thank you. We've got a motion and a second.
Commissioner Cremont,
Yes.
Commissioner Lynn,
Yes.
Commissioner Crane,
Yes.
Commissioner Aragon.
Yes. Okay. Item B, fiscal year end 2026 new budget review and approval.
So that is your spiral bound proposal for 2026. So that started April 1st and will go through March 31st of 2026.
If you have questions for those line items,
Please ask.
answer them. We work through.
And I know you all were working, I know you were.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things.
Okay,
For
yeah.
future budgets, one of the things that we will do, and Commissioner Kramer has pointed this out after, because I tried to do a very general revenue explanation to the expenses. So on page 9 and 10, you'll see that for both operations, which is the low rent program, and then page 10 is the Corazon Square. But we will do annual actuals in the future so that we can see those breakouts in more detail. One of the other things is because we don't have the final numbers for fiscal year 25, it's hard to say that we have all of the actuals, so we would have to try to project the annualization of the 12 months and not know that we land specifically in that. So the margin of error is a little high on that end. But if you look also on page 11, you'll see where we stand with our total fixed assets along with our summary of net position as of March 31, 2024 and 23. And so you'll see towards the bottom of that, you'll see the reserve funds, unrestricted, restricted, and then the net investment in capital assets. So our total net position, although there was a decrease of 6% to the 23 to 24, we still have a pretty decent reserve. So kudos to current administration on keeping the money in the bank, so much appreciated. I think one of the main pieces though to look at in comparison to the revenue and expenses is on cortisone. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this in executive, so I won't go into specifics, but you will see that in order to balance the budget on that specific program, there is a reserve transfer of about $76,480 to balance because there is a deficit or a loss on operations for that specific program. So we'll talk a little bit more in detail in executive about that piece. And then moving forward, you'll see the salary schedules for both administration and cortisone on page 12 with expense details following each of those. Cortisone's on 15.
And maybe Melissa, you can talk a little bit about how you arrived at the salary increase
Sure.
to make sure we are all.
Sure. So I inherited outdated information, and I commissioned through Nelrod. One of the services that they provide is wage and salary surveys. And so last fall, I asked them to update because we were operating on pre-pandemic wage data, which was completely outdated. Especially when we looked at local housing costs, cost of living. And pre-pandemic in Trinidad, it was not $900 and up for a one-bedroom apartment pre-pandemic. And our wages could not stay where they were. And it is not a recruitment and retention tool when someone is trying to decide if they want to come to work for us or they want to go to work for McDonald's. And when McDonald's is starting at $18 an hour, us starting at 14 and 15 is legitimately not legit. And so when I looked at that new wage and salary compilation report from Nelrod, these are wages that are legitimate. And I specifically asked Nelrod when I asked for this new wage and salary survey for them to legitimately look at current cost of living in Trinidad, not what they had used 5 years ago, not what in fact it was, what we were operating on was 2018, so it was longer than 5 years, it was 7 years out of date. And so the data that was used in that new wage and salary survey, wages had to completely increase. And so that is why there is a pretty decent change for pretty much everybody between 2025 fiscal year ending and what we are currently in moving towards fiscal year 2026. So it is not legit to pay somebody $15.51 an hour as a front office operations clerk and think that they can be independent and live in an apartment with their children. Forget buying their own house. It is not legitimate to think that I can hire a semi-skilled maintenance technician for $16.29 an hour when they can go to McDonald's. And if they're going to be a maintenance tech, they legitimately are looking at much higher than $16 an hour. Our minimum starting out, according to the new wage and salary report, is a little over $19 an hour because we're competing for people. We're not necessarily competing for maintenance people, we're competing for employees across the board. And who hires maintenance? Your school system, your city for Parks and Rec, the county through Road and Bridge, the hospital. All of those are bigger. They're also public entities. They're also government entities for the most part. And so we have to raise wages to be able to attract and retain. And when I have staff that have said to me, if I can't get a raise, I can't afford to stay here, that has to say a lot to me.
I will add this to that comment, is that from a DHS perspective, when we are paying staff members $15 or $16 an hour, even at that increase also makes a lot of them ineligible for benefits and services through human services because they're no longer on Medicaid, no longer receive food assistance. So it's a challenge for our staff to be underpaid in the beginning, but then overpaid enough that they can't qualify for assistance. And so it's kind of a catch-22 when you're in that range. But and I think one of the other pieces I'd like to point out on the low rent program also though, and I've talked to Melissa a little bit about, is there's one line item on there of 0 contributions, and that's for other intergovernmental contributions. We support living opportunities within the city of Trinidad. So I would like to see the city of Trinidad kick some funds in.
Yeah, but they have budget problems themselves.
Let's hope this council can get it upright.
Yes,
We can get it upright, they can get it upright, so.
correct.
But I think in the future, we need to be having that type of conversation with city council, because we are charged as board members by the city under their governing board authority to provide this service to the community. And it is their responsibility taking that on in the 60s. I think they need to understand where, as an agency, we're coming from financially.
I agree.
Yeah. So let's hope in the future we can be having that conversation.
Yes. And historically, they have not contributed,
Correct.
ever,
Correct.
so.
Do other housing authorities, they get contributions?
Municipality, yes. Either county or municipality, or combo of both, actually.
Can we expand into the county?
I don't know what the expansion process looks like.
I don't know what that looks like. I'm gonna say it's possible. I don't know what that looks like,
I know
but
it's possible because I
Yeah,
was
there are counties
looking
that can be.
I was looking at other housing authorities in the southeastern portion, and some have the city of and the county
Yeah.
in their umbrella, under their umbrella.
Right.
and
Yeah.
we've been approached under Section 8. We have been approached by landlords out in the county that would be an option. Right now, they're not. So I can do some research and see what that looks like. Is that my resolution with the county and the city? I get involved, I don't know. I can start asking some questions on that.
Good question to ask.
That is absolutely a good question to ask.
And it's not a high priority, it's just something that we're.
I know we had talked to legal about a specific time. Is he waiting for us?
He's waiting for us to call.
Okay.
He's waiting for us to call.
So if there are additional questions on the budget that we need to discuss, I'm more than willing to postpone the vote on this until after, but we do need to go into an executive session because we did schedule time with legal specifically. And I believe that we are already about 10 minutes past that scheduled time. So if you guys are okay with that, then I will ask to hold the other agenda items. We'll come back to those after exec. And I'll need a motion to go into executive session.
Motion into executive session.
I said the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
Commissioner Lind? Commissioner Kamars? Yes. Commissioner Aragon?
Yes.
Commissioner Craig?
Yes.
And you will enter at 5:10.
Yes.